it was.
Now you're making me feel like it was a good thing to do.
Well, they did a good job. The house has been moved, and so it's kind of like this.
Okay, everybody ready? I'm going to call the City Council meeting of March 19th to order, 2013. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Marsh,
Here.
Kenyon,
Here.
Petty,
Here.
Tennant, Shopmire, Adams. Here. Mayor Jordan.
Here. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first order of business we have tonight on City Council meeting presentation, reports, and discussion items. Adela, do you have a report for us from the nominating committee?
I do indeed. We had a great session with lots of good applicants. And I'll say, just like I always say when we tell the applicants when we finish with them, if you don't get appointed this time, please apply again, because we had many, many great applicants. With the A&P Commission, we are recommending one person, Matt Beelan, unexpired tourism industry term ending 3/15. The mayor recommends the following appointments to the Fayetteville Public Library Board with the approval of City Council. Suzanne Clark, term ending 4/18. Charles Adams, term ending 4/18. Animal Services Advisory Board, Lee Chris, one term ending 6/14. Audit Committee had no applicants, so if you have any interest there, I hope you'll apply next time. City Board of Health, no applicants. The Civil Service Commission, Nancy Allen, one term ending 3/19, and Betty Martin, one term ending 3/14. Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeal, Bill Hairston, one term ending 3/18, John Dupree, one term ending 3/17, and Jules Beck, one term ending 3/13. Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, no applications received. Planning Commission, Sarah Bunch, reappointed to a term ending 3/16. William Chesser to a term ending 3/16. And Ron Autry to one term ending 3/16. Mayor, this concludes, and I recommend that we accept these recommendations.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the nominating committee board appointments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any comments on that? Yes.
Can I ask a question? Adela, on that one term ending 3/13 on
That's
the
now.
construction board,
Isn't that now?
is that, I don't remember. We
That
didn't-
was the unexpired term that we had appointed him to earlier.
So it ends March 3rd this month?
Uh-huh. Mhm. Yeah, I questioned that with the clerk's office, and that was what they told me. So,
I don't necessarily remember that in committee. Thank you.
Okay.
And for the record, the A&P Commission, you are approving the nomination of the A&P Commission for that new position.
yes,
Okay.
we are approving from
You're
the,
approving it.
from the nominations committee, and we're recommending to the council approval.
Right.
Everybody good? All right. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Okay. On the consent agenda tonight. Number one, approval of the March 5th, 2013 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, portable changeable message sign. Resolution of approving a budget adjustment in the total amount of $14,500 to provide funding for the purchase of a portable changeable message sign for the Transportation Department. Number 3, bid number 13-12, North Point Ford, resolution awarding bid number 13-12 and authorizing the purchase of 3 Ford F-550 service body trucks from North Point Ford of North Little Rock in a total amount of $121,812 for use by the Water and Sewer Division. Number 4, bid number 13-13, North Point Ford, resolution awarding bid number 13-13, authorizing the purchase of 1 Ford F-250 utility truck from North Point Ford of North Little Rock in the amount of $32,969 for use by the Transportation Department. Number 5, North Point Ford Information Technology Division. Resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 Ford F-150 pickup truck in the amount of $18,492 pursuant to a state procurement contract from North Point Ford of North Little Rock for use by the Information Technology Division and approving a budget adjustment. Number 6, Fayetteville Chevrolet, Transportation Department. Resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 Chevrolet Tahoe in the amount of $28,789 pursuant to a state procurement contract from Fayetteville Chevrolet of Little Rock for use by the Transportation Department and approving budget adjustment. Number 7, Fayetteville Chevrolet Solid Waste Division. Resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 Chevrolet Tahoe in the amount of $28,789 pursuant to a state procurement contract from Fayetteville Chevrolet of Little Rock for use by the Solid Waste Division. Number 8, Mountain Street and College Avenue sidewalk improvements. Resolution approving a budget adjustment in the amount of $60,600, recognizing revenue for improvements to sidewalks on Mountain Street and College Avenue. Number 9, Craft and Tull. Resolution approving a contract with Craft and Tull in the amount not to exceed $42,430 for architectural and bidding services related to renovations of pool buildings at Wilson Park. Number 10, Rupert Road improvements. A resolution expressing the willingness of the city of Fayetteville to utilize federal aid funds for reconstruction and relocation of Rupert Road from Weddington Drive to Mount Comfort Road. I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as read. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Okay, under unfinished business, number 1, Weddington Corridor Neighborhood Master Plan. Resolution to adopt the Weddington Corridor Neighborhood Master Plan Vision Document, an illustrative master plan. Okay. Peter, you have that one?
Mayor, City Council, good evening. I would direct your attention to the screen where I have a short presentation I'd like to give you on the highlights of the Weddington Corridor Master Plan. Before I start that, I'd just like to say that the Planning Commission recommended forwarding the Weddington Corridor Master Plan to you all at their February 11th meeting with an amendment to the implementation timeline for the realization of one of the access management goals, and I'll explain that when I get to that point in the presentation here in a few minutes. So the Weddington Corridor Master Plan came out of a week-long charrette-style planning process that we did with neighbors in the West Weddington, West Fayetteville area in the fall of last year, in October and November. This is the 4th neighborhood master plan that the city has led. The other 3 plans for the downtown area, Fayette Junction, and the Walker Park neighborhood. As many of you may well know, the Weddington area has experienced rapid growth in the past 15 to 20 years, and that was one of the major reasons why this area was selected for this year's master planning process. As with all master plans that the city undertakes, the goals, the 6 goals of City Plan 2030 are our guiding principles, and this plan was no different. The area that the master plan focused on was 424 acres along West Weddington Drive from just east of Interstate 540 out to just a little bit west of 51st Avenue. This area is about 33% undeveloped, And not only did we look inside the red boundary, the 424 acres, but we also asked charrette participants to think about how to better connect the surrounding residential neighborhoods with the area inside the corridor to create a more complete neighborhood for West Fayetteville. As part of the charrette process, we first started with a little bit of a history lesson, and we talked about the rapid growth that the area has experienced, as illustrated by the two photographs of the Weddington and I-540 interchange. As I mentioned, in the past 15 to 20 years, significant housing construction in the area and significant commercial development along the Weddington corridor. During the Saturday hands-on design workshop, we spent about 3 hours with charrette participants. We broke folks up into groups of 6 to 7 people, and we asked them 3 questions. We asked them to focus on developing a neighborhood identity for the Weddington area in West Fayetteville. We asked them to think about defining a heart of the neighborhood and missing goods and services in the neighborhood. And then we asked them to think about transportation options and what their daily trips into and out of the corridor looked like. When groups finished their discussion, they all developed top ideas, and they voted on those top ideas, and then each group presented those top ideas to the other groups that were at the charrette. Also, as part of the charrette, we conducted a visual preference survey where we asked participants their preference on infrastructure and development practices based on two or three pictures as illustrated by these 2 pictures of intersection designs, and then we tallied the votes associated with those preferences. At the end of that charrette process, staff took all of the information that we compiled, and we began to develop options for design in the area, and we presented drafts of those options to neighbors and residents throughout the week out at the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club. You can see a photograph here of the open house that we had on Monday evening following our Saturday hands-on design workshop. Out of that charrette exercise, we developed 4 guiding principles: redefining Weddington Drive as Weddington Parkway, envisioning the heart of the neighborhood along Rupel Road, supporting active transportation options, and designating a north-south oriented greenway connecting Hamstring and Owl Creek watersheds. And I'll elaborate on those a little bit more. In addition to the guiding principles, we developed an illustrative master plan for the Weddington corridor. And this plan serves as one vision for how this area could develop as a guide for what the area could ultimately look like. And I would say that the illustrative master plan in no way sets in stone what any one individual development or project will look like in the area. Again, it only provides a guide for the area. We completed this illustrative master plan and presented it 1 week after the charrette event. And then over the next 3 months, we worked on developing the guidance document at the top of the screen. Some of the highlights of the plan include a tree-lined boulevard running down the entirety of what we're now calling Weddington Parkway. This will help manage access and limit left turn conflicts. We also included a roundabout design, replacing 2 of the stoplights on the western side of Interstate 540. We added signals at Tahoe and Marvin. This Tahoe signal will provide a protected left turn for folks trying to get out of the Harps parking lot. There's also a pedestrian crossing included here between the 2 signals. And we included a separated side path for pedestrians and bicycles to get across the freeway. This side path would then connect with trails that run along the west side of Shiloh Drive, and also connect with a cycle track that runs along the north side of Weddington Drive. The idea for a boulevard was strongly supported by many of the group's top ideas. Also, the boulevard concept showed a strong preference during the visual preference survey. You can see in the the rendered graphic here, what that would look like from an aerial view looking to the west, looking to the east along Weddington Parkway. The next idea I'd like to tell you about was this idea for the heart of the neighborhood being focused at the intersection of Rupel Road and Weddington Drive. You can see the quarter-mile circle centered on that intersection, representing about a 5-minute walk from that intersection. To the northwest of Rupel and Weddington, we proposed a central green area with a lot of mixed-use development surrounding it. This was strongly supported during the visual preference survey and by many of the group's top ideas. Again, a rendered graphic of what that central green would look like. Picture sort of the Fayetteville Square with the old post office removed out of the center of it and a sort of a grass lawn in the center, kind of like what Bentonville has in their downtown square. Surrounding that are many mixed-use retail type establishments. Further to the west, we proposed smaller single-family homes and some multifamily housing to provide for some missing middle type housing and a transition between the commercial area surrounding the central green and the existing residential areas further to the west. The final detail I'd like to share with you is this idea of a north-south oriented greenway that would connect Bryce Davis Park with the area around the Boys and Girls Club and the Owl Creek Elementary School. We essentially copied or borrowed a design that one of the groups presented to us in their transportation plan here, and created that on our illustrative master plan with a nice trail that serpentines right through here and connects these two areas. Again, strongly supported during the visual preference survey by the charrette participants. That piece of trail fits well with a larger green ribbon of trails that was envisioned for the entire area. And that green ribbon provides nice connections to the city's existing trail system further to the east and on the other side of Interstate 540. If and when the City Council approves the resolution to pass the Weddington Corridor Plan, staff will begin working on implementation steps that are outlined in the vision document. Those include working with the Highway and Transportation Department on a speed study to evaluate the posted speed limits along Weddington Parkway to establish whether or not those are too high, possibly. That's what some of the charrette participants felt like. We've already begun discussions with the Highway and Transportation Department on proposed interchange reconfiguration for the Weddington interchange and inclusion of that separated bicycle and pedestrian side path on the north side of that new interchange. Rezonings will be an important component and implementation step if we're to achieve that central green and that walkable mixed-use type of development to the northwest of Weddington and Rupel Road, where folks envisioned a heart of the neighborhood. Amendments to the Fayetteville's alternative transportation plan and enduring green network will be necessary to achieve that green ribbon and that north-south oriented greenway that I mentioned that'll connect Bryce Davis Park with Owl Creek. Parkland dedications will be necessary to establish some of the park space that's shown in the illustrative master plan. A conservation subdivision ordinance is something that staff can begin working on. That'll provide a development option for folks who would like to cluster housing in a particular area and then set aside another portion of land in a conservation easement. And then I mentioned the modifications or the amendments that the Planning Commission recommended. Originally, we included the access management plan in the longer term steps, in the 15 to 20 year steps. They pointed out that in order to realize the eventual access management goals, we needed to begin now on an access management, particularly in our discussions with the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department for that portion of Weddington Parkway that will be reconfigured as part of the interchange improvements. So we agreed to move those that it was a good idea to move the access management plan development to the near term, but keep the renaming and the redevelopment of the remainder of Weddington in the more long term. If anyone cares to find out more information about the plan, there's a link to the illustrative master plan on the city's website under the Sustainability and Strategic Planning division. There's also a link to the guidance document. A large copy of the illustrative master plan is also hanging on the wall in the Fayetteville Public Library right behind where the Arcegas Coffee Shop is as well. In addition, just yesterday I received a letter with some concerns from Ozark Electric Cooperative, who is a longtime resident in this area. That was addressed to the mayor and city council. They pointed out a couple of concerns with related to the roundabout. They had some concerns about limiting their access that might be caused by the creation of the boulevard, the center median running down Weddington. Then they also had some concerns related to the safety of pedestrians and trail users, where we showed the proposed trail crossing their driveways. And I would say that the concepts that we showed, as I mentioned earlier on the illustrative master plan, are only one vision for how the area could develop. The most important component to the plan are the four guiding principles, and then the implementation steps, the 8 implementation steps that I listed. So we would, while we recognize that these are valid concerns that Ozark Electric has, I would say that as we work on the details of our access management plan and details of where these specific trails would be located and how they would cross at intersections and their driveways, that we could work through the details of some of these issues and address their concerns at that time, rather than going back and making changes to the illustrative master plan, because, as I said, it's just one vision for how the area could be eventually built out.
What questions do we have for Peter on this? No? Okay. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Everybody, please introduce yourself when you come to the podium. Peter, thank you for your work on this, by the way. Introduce yourself. Everybody gets one turn to the microphone unless an alderman brings you back up to ask you questions, okay?
Okay, Mayor, Council, my name is Kevin Mitchell. I'm a business owner on Weddington, Too Cool Frozen Yogurt by Hunain Manor. About 3 years ago, I proposed a 360 entrance onto 540 to the Arkansas Highway Transportation Department. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, and at the last meeting that they had, I also proposed a roundabout, but the way it's drawn, I think it may impede traffic even more than it does now. I just wanted to say that, and maybe I need to just discuss this with you guys later, there's a way to make a roundabout at Weddington that is, will relieve all the traffic on the 540 Weddington interchange with absolutely minimal amount of interruption to traffic. I'll just real briefly tell you, basically you would build 2 bridges starting where your entrances and exits on the highway are now. You would build a bridge, basically a roundabout bridge from side to side, and there would be absolutely no interruption to Weddington or the highway. The bridge would be raised over the highway as Weddington is now. And basically the only interruption, the bridges could be built while traffic was going, and basically the only interruption would be at the very end when they had to just connect across Weddington. And so there's, I think a big, huge roundabout there would get rid of all the traffic signs or traffic lights, and basically it could be built with no interruption at all to traffic, and it would help the Weddington area greatly. So that's really all my only comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to address us on this? So now I'll bring it back to the council. Okay, council, what do you want to do?
Item I have a few comments. First
Sure.
of all, thank you, council, for tabling this so that I could be a part of this week. I appreciate that very much. Thanks, Mr. Mitchell, for your comments and for your participation in the charrettes and all. I know you did that. And thanks very, very much to the city staff. I wasn't on the council, nor did I participate very much in the last time there was a neighborhood plan, so I didn't know exactly what we were getting into. And you all amazed me. And I'd like to just point out again, you said it, but I'm not sure if everybody heard it. You had this plan drawn in a week after. I don't think y'all ever went to bed. You were up there all night drawing and combining and compiling all of the citizens' input, and I was totally impressed. So thank you very, very much. I loved the way you respected and listened very carefully to business owners who came to the business meeting here at City Hall first and took very good notes on all they had to say. And then the way you divided us up into groups at the charrettes and used different members of the staff. I know the group I was in was just, every idea was respected and listened to very carefully. And I was totally impressed with the staff of the city, Mayor. Y'all were great. I'm going to just say again that the one thing that I kept hearing at the charrette from different groups, and you've pointed this out, I think it was number 2 on your list, but on mine it's number 1, and that is finding this heart of the west side of town, finding the heart, whether that means a center place, which you've kind of drawn out, or whether that means more of a feeling that I think you've captured in a really interesting way. The heart of the people coming together to give their ideas. A couple of weeks ago, the Owl Creek Elementary School, I went to an event. They're a diamond school to watch. There aren't very many of those. 3 new schools in Arkansas. There's our Owl Creek School in Ward 4. Fabulous production by their students, and just a great feeling there. The next week, the Fayetteville School Board met there at Owl Creek School, and so we had another opportunity for that part of town and for Ward 4 to come together and be a part of the school board meeting. The mayor has had his town hall meetings there at the Boys and Girls Club. I think of it as our city's, premier indoor park. Our kids are inside, they're swimming, playing ball. What a wonderful thing we've got going on that west side of 540. So I think what I heard is heart. Let's get together and let's find ways to do a better job of connecting and planning and facilitate planning in the future so that we have careful planning and use all of those good things that we've got going. The other things that I heard there that we're going to be talking about further tonight is the whole urban ag idea and community gardens. We have a lot of university students living on the west side of 540, a lot of renters who don't have space in their yard to grow their own gardens. So when we consider the urban ag future of our city, I hope we're going to do a lot of thinking about this part of our city there. There was another idea someone threw out, a branch library idea. That's a possibility, but that just connection, the transit, getting people across 540 safely and encouraging people to get out of their cars and walk and ride their bikes and getting some even better transportation back and forth. We've got the bus station. We've got a big, huge church there that meets many times with large groups. So we've got a lot of things to consider, and I think you all have done an amazing job considering all of those. Some of us tried to call Ozarks Electric, I know, and talk to them. We're going to work with them more on these ideas with the roundabout and all, but we're not going to make any plans in this city that's going to make it where a much-loved company in our city can't get their trucks in and out, and members of the cooperative can't get in and out safely. We're going to make it better. And so I just get real excited hearing about this, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. I'm very proud of our city staff and our citizens in Ward 4 for all coming together and finding the heart of our Weddington corridor. I think it's a really good thing. Thank you all very much. Too long.
What other comments do we have from the council? Well, and so
I move we pass the resolution.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Hetty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
All right, thank you, council, thank you, staff again. Everybody participated in that. Okay, under new business, number 1. Amend 33.108, compensation and an ordinance to amend 33.108, compensation relating to planning commissioners and to approve a budget adjustment. Kit?
Whereas the Fayetteville City Council passed a resolution on March 5th, 2013, requesting that planning commissioners be compensated in the amount of $375 monthly, and requesting that the administration prepare the necessary documents for this to be accomplished. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amend Section 33.108 compensation of the Fayetteville Code by repealing it and enacting a replacement Section 33.108 as follows. Section 33.108 compensation. The members of the Planning Commission shall be compensated in the amount of $375 for their service. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby approves the attached budget adjustment in order to pay this compensation. And I should probably, I think on there, I should have said shall be compensated monthly in the amount. So if you would amend that and add monthly right after compensated.
So we need an amendment to add monthly.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to add monthly. All right, any comments on that? Sonia, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Okay. Now for the amended resolution. Ordinance, I'm sorry. What, who has that?
Well, actually, Alderman Lane first brought the resolution requesting this, so I'll defer to him.
Alderman Long, would you like
Long.
to?
Well, I just appreciate City Attorney and the Mayor acting so quickly on this. I brought this forward because I thought it was important for our city to make it as feasible as possible for professionals who otherwise might not be able to, if they're without compensation, serve on our planning commission. And I think this will attract more people to that role that's very important for our city, and I just appreciate the support from the council.
Okay. What questions do we have for the council on this? Alderman Long. Anything? What public comment do we have on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
As I said earlier, Mayor, I think this is an excellent thing. When I was on the council when we stopped paying the commission, and it was to be a very brief thing, and so I'm delighted that Alderman Long has brought this forward, and I'm happy to support it.
It's kind of nice being around when we come back around.
Yes.
Anyway, we've seen it very low and we've seen it a lot better. Okay. I need a motion to go to the second reading if you're so
I
inclined.
move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
An ordinance to amend Section 33.108 compensation relating to the planning commissioners and to approve a budget adjustment.
I moved we go to the third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
An ordinance to amend Section 33.108 compensation relating to the planning commissioners and to approve a budget adjustment.
Any final comments from the council on this? Okey dokey. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Okay, number 2, vacation 12-4203 Hostel Road sewer easements. An ordinance approving vacation 12-4203 submitted by the city of Fayetteville for several blanket easements along Hostel Road, Maple Street, and Oliver Avenue. Kit?
Whereas the city council has the authority under ACA 1454-104 to vacate public grounds or portions thereof which are not required for corporate purposes. And whereas the city council has determined the following described portion of the platted utility easements are not required for corporate purposes. Now therefore be it ordained by the city council of the city of Fayetteville, Arkansas, section 1, that the city council of the city of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby vacates and abandons the following described utility easements as shown in Exhibit B attached. Section 2, that a copy of this ordinance duly certified by the city clerk, along with a map attached and labeled Exhibit A, shall be filed in the office of recorder of the county and recorded in the deed records of the county. Section 3, that this vacation approval is subject to the following conditions of approval and shall not be in effect until the condition is met. The vacation shall not be valid until a 20-foot water and sewer easement has been dedicated by the property owner. Each property owner is responsible for completing this task independently.
Okay, Jeremy?
In the 1950s, the city of Fayetteville approached several property owners west of the university, west of Wearsback Road along Maple, Oliver, Halsell, Markham Road area, and requested utility easements to install water and sewer lines within that area. Those utility easements were given to the city and the lines were installed. It's recently come to our attention that unfortunately, when the property owners gave those easements, they actually gave an easement, what's called a blanket easement. So essentially, when they gave the easement, instead of describing where the sewer line would go and what the easement, where the easement would be, they simply put the deed for the whole property as the legal description. So what occurred then is that the entire property is a utility easement. That's not been known until now, so it's not really affected anything until now, but we actually have building permits, things like that, that the city cannot sign off on because our codes prevent us from doing anything like that in a utility easement. So staff brought this to the attention to the 11 separate parcels that we identified. 7 of those signed up to go through this process. The rest can certainly do that. They simply didn't get the information back to us in time. And so we're going through this process to vacate the easements within those properties. There will be a requirement that they file a subsequent easement document over where the actual water and sewer lines are. So we do have the protection to replace or repair those existing water and sewer lines. And so that protects the city's rights in order to be able to do that. But we're essentially requesting that those easements be vacated. The map on page 4 shows those properties and how they definitely affect in those individual parcels. Staff's recommending approval of this ordinance as to the Planning Commission with a 9-0 vote.
Questions from the council for Jeremy on this? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this? So now I'm bringing it back to the council.
I move we accept as published.
Need a motion to read. It's an ordinance, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It needs a second reading.
Sorry. I move that we move to the second reading.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Hetty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
An ordinance approving VAC 12-4203 submitted by the city of Fayetteville for several blanket easements along Housel Road, Maple Street, and Oliver Avenue.
Move to suspend the rules and go to second reading, third and final reading.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to go to third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Hetty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
An ordinance approving VAC 12-4203 submitted by the city of Fayetteville for several blanket easements along Housel Road, Maple Street, and Oliver Avenue.
Any final comments from the council on this? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Hetty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, First Community Bank of Crawford County Cost Share Agreement. An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving a $64,000 cost share agreement with First Community Bank of Crawford County for the milling and paving of streets within Sunbridge Village development, and approving a budget adjustment of $64,000 recognizing revenue from letters of credit. Yep.
Whereas the city council adopted a resolution accepting the dedication of street right-of-way and maintenance responsibility for previously private streets within the Sunbridge Villas development upon completion of the required millings and overlay of the streets. And whereas 2 letters of credits totaling $64,000 were posted by the previous owner and developer to guarantee street improvements required as a part of the RPZD approved in 2006, and they were called by the city as required improvements had not been completed. And whereas First Community Bank of Crawford County is now owner of the development and desires to enter into a cost share agreement with the city to complete the street improvements, whereby the city's only financial obligation would be to contribute the $64,000 obtained through the letters of credit. Now therefore be ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby determines an exceptional situation exists in which competitive bidding is not deemed feasible or practical, and therefore waives the requirements of formal competitive bidding, and approves a $64,000 cost share agreement with First Community Bank of Crawford County, marked as Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part hereof, for the milling and paving of streets within the Sunbridge Villas development. Section 2, the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby approves a budget adjustment attached as Exhibit B, recognizing the revenue from the letters of credit.
All right, Kent, you want to give us a little, I'm sorry, Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This subdivision was approved in 2006. It utilized existing private streets from a mobile home park that was there on the site. One of the requirements was that the streets had to be overlaid by the developer, and that work has not been done yet, but that's what we're really talking about tonight. In 2012, the council approved accepting these private streets as city streets with the stipulation that the overlay had to be completed. We did have some letters of credit, $64,000 for the overlays. We had to call those letters of credit in order to basically use that money. And so it's proposed to take that money, turn it back around to the bank. They will provide the additional funds required, and we'll do the overlay. Once the overlay is completed, then the platting process will be completed, and we'll sign off on them, and the city will own the streets. What typically happens with these cost shares is the work has to be completed we will inspect it, it has to be completed to city standards, and we have to approve it. We will then write the check to the bank once the work is completed. So it has to be all done before we'll write the check.
Okay, what questions do we have for Chris on this? Anything? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this? See none, bring it back to the council. It is an ordinance.
Move to suspend the rules and go to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving a $64,000 cost share agreement with First Community Bank of Crawford County for the milling and paving of streets within the Sunbridge Villas development, and approving a budget adjustment of $64,000, recognizing revenue from letters of credit.
I move we go to third and final reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving a $64,000 cost share agreement with First Community Bank of Crawford County for the milling and paving of streets within the Sunbridge Villas development, and approving a budget adjustment of $64,000, recognizing revenue from letters of credit.
Any final comments from the council on this? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Okay, number 4, U.S. Geological Survey Agreement. An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving an agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Department of the Interior in the amount of $21,528 for the operation and maintenance of 3 urban stream gauging stations in the city for calendar year 2013. Kit.
Whereas since 1998, the City of Fayetteville has participated in a joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey for the operation and maintenance of 3 urban stream gauging stations to record data concerning rainfall and runoff at Nyakoska Creek in Gully Park, College Branch at State Highway 62, and Town Branch tributary in Walker Park. And whereas the information obtained provides urban rainfall and streamflow data for future drainage studies, as well as provides information for the city's EPA Phase 2 NPDES stormwater monitoring requirements. And whereas the cost of the agreement to the city for 2013 now exceeds $20,000 and would otherwise require competitive bidding unless the requirement is waived. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby determines an exceptional situation exists in which competitive bidding is deemed not feasible or practical, and therefore waives requirements of formal competitive bidding and approves an agreement marked as Exhibit A attached here to, made a part hereof, between the city and the U.S. Geological Survey in the amount of $21,528 for the operation and maintenance of 3 urban stream gauging stations in the city for 2013.
Sarah?
Thank you. These are 3 gauges that just measure the flow depth and the flow rate on the creek where they're set up, and then this data is posted real time to the USGS website. Do you have any questions?
What questions do we have for Sarah? Everybody good? All right. Do we have any public comment on this? Okay. It's an ordinance, so
I move we go to the second reading.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving an agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey in the amount of $21,528 for the operation and maintenance of 3 urban stream gauging stations in the city for 2013.
I move we suspend the rules, go to third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving an agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey in the amount of $21,528 for the operation and maintenance of 3 urban stream gauging stations in the city for 2013.
Okay. Any final comments from the council on this? Thanks, Sarah, for your work on this. Okay. Sandra, tell me when you're ready.
Petty,
Okay. Would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Okay, number 5, ADM 13-4331, Local Foods Ordinance Review. Resolution to request city staff review the Unified Development Code and prepare amendments to allow residents to raise farm animals and sell crops, animals, and animal products in non-agriculturally zoned areas to provide greater food security for federal residents. Peter?
Mayor, council, nationally, 1 in 6 Americans is fighting hunger, and in Fayetteville, that statistic is 1 in 4. Arkansas leads the nation with 19% of our population who are defined as food insecure, which means they lack consistent access to enough food for healthy, active living. 15% of Washington County residents are food insecure, and according to the state, Washington County has the 2nd highest food stamp usage rate in the state, and these problems appear to be increasing. Recent activity and interest in the realm of food security and local foods has been demonstrated by several local organizations such as the Fayetteville Farmers Market, Apple Seeds, Fayetteville Community Garden Coalition, Fayetteville Forward Local Foods Group, and Feed Fayetteville. And several of these groups recently completed some community surveys that asked residents to comment on how Fayetteville could improve the city's food security situation and improve access to urban agriculture and access to healthful, fresh foods. My department, Sustainability and Strategic Planning, felt like the items that they identified that we could most likely address through city policy are expanding the ability to sell food on site where grown, reviewing our animals and fowl ordinance for possible expansion, using leftover space such as parks and excess right-of-way to plant food-bearing vegetation, establish more community gardens, and provide or expand composting services. Passage of the ordinance that you have before you tonight would request staff to work with stakeholders and develop a list of potential changes to city ordinances that would address these items in the interest of promoting urban agriculture and food insecurity and addressing food insecurity in Fayetteville. These changes would be brought back to the City Council in approximately 6 months, at which time you would be able to debate the merits of the proposed changes. Passage of this resolution would in no way change current ordinances or allow expanded use of farm animals inside the city of Fayetteville at this time. It's only a resolution of intent. requesting that city staff work with stakeholders to address some of these issues related to city code. Also today, I received a letter of support from Ward 4 resident Jeff Huber, who is the Assistant Director of the University of Arkansas's Community Design Center. He's leading a design effort on a Fayetteville 2030 food city scenario that is looking at how to provide food for the city of Fayetteville in the year 2030, when we're expected to have over 28,000 new housing units. And he asks one really relevant question: what if we envisioned a Fayetteville food system that is based on food security, linking local food production to urban development? And I think that the work that, if this resolution is passed, the work that our stakeholder group will seek to do will seek to answer that very question.
Okay. Well, council, this is something that I don't know what to tell you. We've talked about this. We started in 2009, and Federal Board was before that. I know this is something I'm interested in exploring. I think this is something that we need to look at because when I hear statistics of 15% of the people in this county has food insecurity, that concerns me. And some of the reports I've read that 18,000 children in the world die a day of starvation. A day. Now, I don't know much, but if we can do some locally grown food and alleviate some of that burden on people, I think it's something we need to study. Now, we're not changing the world here, but I would like your permission to be able to study that. I certainly want to thank Feed Fayetteville, the food groups, people that have worked on this. I want to thank Alderman Petty, who actually came up with a lot of the ideas. And I certainly personally want to thank you for some of the things that you actually have helped teach me about growing food in urban areas. And I see people sitting out there that I'm sure is going to speak on this tonight. Now, this is something that we've needed to do for a long time. This is something I want to study, and then we will bring it back to you, and you can put amendments on it, or you can define it, or whatever you want to do, but I think it's time. So with that, I'll let you ask any questions that you might want to ask. And then we'll have public comment. I do support it, as you can tell.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
the only thing I'd say is I wish we'd started this 6 months ago, because now's the growing season, but anyway, we can grow a few things in the fall if after our study is complete. But yes, I think it's a great idea, and I think we've all been had our eyes open lately at the revelation that there are so many hungry people in our area. So I think whatever we can do to alleviate that, and best of all, with fresh vegetables, that's what we ought to do. So I'm very supportive.
Sir.
Last night, we discussed this resolution at the Environmental Action Committee meeting, and we voted unanimously in support of the resolution, and we recommend that the council pass this resolution.
Thank you, ma'am. Matthew?
You said we weren't changing the world, but I'd like to say yet. Most of us are fortunate enough to live middle-class lifestyles, and a lot of times we don't realize how fortunate, how secure we have it. Where me and my family live, I'm able to walk to a grocery store. I take great pleasure in that. I have such great access to food that I have the luxury of complaining when Ozark Natural Foods stops selling my favorite cheddar cheese. But the fact is, there are quite a few people that don't have those luxuries. Statistics like 1 in 4 in Washington County don't know where their next meal is coming from, or so many children perishing each day. Those are only going to get worse, sad to say, as we experience a changing world. The best case scenarios for the effects of climate change on food production say that our ability to produce food will be lessened by 10%. Best case scenario. Right now, our food travels an average of 1,500 miles to get to us. And if you talk about big box grocers, that average is 3,000 miles. We know, we've seen even just this year in the headlines, that as the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of food goes up, both on the production side and on the transportation side. And while I might be able to lower my disposable spending to be able to make up that difference, there are a lot of families out there that can't. Over the winter, there are families here in Washington County that have to choose between heating their homes or buying food that is healthy for them. And we have an opportunity to start looking at that sort of thing. Right now, there's a saying in food circles that we're 3 days away from anarchy because most supermarkets only carry enough food to sell for 3 days. And the only way I think to make our community resilient against these kinds of changing forces is to start investigating how to produce food locally and in a radical manner. The letter that we got from Jeff Huber at the Community Design Center, the project they're working on right now, I think is nothing less than visionary. We've determined there that if we were able to do everything necessary, that with a strong city-county partnership, we could produce enough food in Washington County for all of Fayetteville and for the other communities. I think that's a phenomenal realization, and we're nowhere close to being able to do that. So this is only the first step. And it's important for economical reasons too. You can add up jobs for all the different distinct sectors. And the food sector probably has more jobs than any other sector when you count the service industry, the grocers, the producers, the distributors. That's a lot of people working in the food industry here in Fayetteville. But we don't have, and we've never talked about having something as crazy as a Department of Food, even though it's so fundamental to all of our lives. We have a Department of Transportation, we have a Department of Planning, but no Department of Food. Not saying we should, but I think that illustrates the point that this is an important issue that has been ignored for a long time. So I'm excited that we can get this passed. I hope after 6 months we can start working on official partnerships with the county to go to the next step after this.
While Peter's standing there, I'd like to say this, hooray to you, Matthew, for your work. And I think it's really exciting that this is, the letter that we have in front of us is coming from Community Design Center. And I know, Matthew, you've done some work in the center. I'm at the law school at the university where we have the only LLM program, a post-JD degree program in agricultural and food law. And I know that we have a couple of people in that program now that have met with some of you and some students that have met with you. And so I'm really excited about the fact that we have the university here and that we can work together without that expertise of this center, the Community Design Center, our experts on our city staff, our experts at the law school who can help us develop, our expert in our own city attorney. And I just think this is so exciting. We've been doing things. I've been involved in projects, for example, in Belize, where we went and helped with some hunger issues and getting some water into the school and food into the school and a garden beside the school. We think about this in other countries a lot, and I've even been involved in that. But to stop and do something right here in our own city, it is absolutely time, and we're sitting in a perfect place to use the expertise of all these people. So I urge you to use the university every chance you can, and for them to use us as a city and work together in a cooperative way here. I think it's real exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay. All right, let's take some public comment.
My name is Don Bennett, and I've lived in Fayetteville since 1981. And a year and a half ago, I started a farm. I'm the founder and director of Tricycle Farms. It's a 2 1/3 acre farm in the center of the city. It's right at this intersection of Sycamore and Garland Avenue. And nobody knew it was there until we invited the whole city in to come and be part of our community experience. I want to thank you, Lionel, Mayor Jordan, and Councilman Matthew Petty, Sarah Marsh. Y'all have all been out there. We've all talked about how important law is in defining what a citizen can and cannot do. We find ourselves in parts of the country where rights are being taken away. You can't make investment in your property because you don't necessarily have the right to do what generations ago we took for granted, which is just food. You know, I approached this idea of Tricycle Farms and inviting the community in so that because we are separated from our culture of food. It's predicated by golden arches. At Tricycle Farms, chicken tenders are actually people that take care of the chickens that we have at the farm. It's not something we eat.
Not be fat fried?
None of that. I thought that in 2 acres in the center of the city that we could throw a pebble in a pond and create a ripple effect through the neighborhood. And it's gone beyond my wildest imagination. There's a church across the street that served a meal every 3rd Sunday. And we crossed the street and said we'd like to impact that meal, and they invited us in with open arms, open doors, and open hearts. And now through a combination of 7 multi-denominational churches, we've turned it into Sunday supper together, not just us, but a community coming together and deciding that we could actually use every Sunday for a meal that we share with community, and everyone, including everyone in front of me and behind me, is invited to this meal because it's a community experience. It's not a soup line. And we hope to impact that meal every 3rd Sunday with fresh, naturally grown food, no chemicals, high nutrient density, because really what this food city idea is going to give us is a healthy city. It's going to give us a deep economy that we can connect with our neighbors and share food like we used to. We can build barns like we used to, if that's what we're trying to build. But bridges, I think, to each other, to our neighbors. The transformation in the neighborhood is that people are buying homes to live next to the farm and becoming our neighbors and share the work on the farm. We've got this idea that we can share a 1/3 of the food, give away a 1/3 of the food, and sell a 1/3 of the food. So, you know, showing how we can sell food off of our property to restaurants and vendors and neighbors through a walking experience or through using the bike trail to deliver our food is some of the ideas that we have. But we need government to say that that is possible. And some folks told me that this day would never come, but I said, we live in Fayetteville. Yeah, it's definitely possible, and I believe that in our near future we'll be looking back at this day like we looked back on those bike trails and realize what a great asset it will be to the community. And when we start to really understand what a deep economy is, when we trade dollars with our neighbors, that our tax base explodes, and the true sustainability of a community is where we're going to find it, and it's going to be in our food. Because some guy, I want to steal a quote, but he said, food is our problem. Food is our solution. And thank y'all again, and thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Very much
Thank
for
you.
your work. Okay, who else?
Hello, my name is Joanna Pollock, and I just really want to thank you, Mayor Jordan, for your leadership on this issue and ensuring that we're going to pursue a comprehensive urban ag policy. a comprehensive food policy for our city. And thank you to the council as well, and officials and planners as well, for really taking this on deeply. And I feel exceedingly grateful and moved to be a part of this community. Just to be able to live here is a privilege. I just wanted to express my support for pursuing a comprehensive urban ag policy for Fayetteville. I think it is just the right thing to do on so many levels. Matthew talked about climate change, and moving to more of a locally based food system is going to have a huge impact on greenhouse gas emissions. Food security has been addressed very well tonight, and by giving people the sovereignty to pursue growing their own food and the empowerment to do so, that's going to create a food system that is going to be more diverse, that's going to be more nutrient dense, and it builds social capacity in a community too. You know, my husband and I live at Tricycle Farm, and you know, we just lived across town, but we just couldn't get enough, so we had to move over there, so it would be right out our back door. You know, when you just spend time with other people in your community, especially one as rich as this one, getting in the soil and creating solutions for the future together, it really builds bridges and in relationship. So I think it's good for our community in terms of wellness, physical and mental health, so and just social capital. Let me see if I left anything off. Hey, it keeps money in the local economy. That's great. Supports farmers and creates new ones. And I think I've addressed everything. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing this progress and being a part of that.
Thank you, Joey.
Thank you.
Who else would like to comment on this?
Well, I had come in here to be a part of the farmers market contingent on a ordinance change, but happened into a conversation that's very important to me. My name is Mark Kane. I've been at the farmers market here for this will be our 28th or 9th year. I can't remember exactly. We have Dripping Springs Garden, and I live about 50 miles from here. But I just wanted, coming into this conversation, which I didn't know was happening tonight, I just want to share a story with you about a job that I had right out of college as a biology graduate of the University of Illinois. There was a very interesting project there called the Urbana Park District Organic Garden Program. And it was a community garden that I worked for as assistant manager for about 2 years, in which the city had, under the direction of the Park District, had allocated about maybe it was 3 acres to this project where people could come in and rent plots for $30 a year that were, I believe they were 60 by 60. They were large enough plots that a family could go and garden most of what they needed in their vegetables. And if you're in the process of looking at decentralizing food production around Fayetteville, I would advise you to take a look at what types of land the city might have access to that could be converted into urban gardens that could be rented as plots by people, because having been a part of the farmers market and small farming for a long time, there are many, many drawbacks to the whole grow food and sell food and buy food. But there are many positive aspects of people getting out in the sun and growing their own. And what I would find on Sunday afternoon at the Urbana Park District Community Garden were families out gardening side by side on plots, and had very much the same social flavor as the Fayetteville Farmers Market does. And so you can create those pockets of community and food production by allocating space. Now, in this project, we were clear that we wanted people to inherit plots that were free of any residues, so we made people sign statements that they were actually not going to use chemical products on their gardens, whether you would want to do that or not. But Fayetteville does not have any community gardens that I'm aware of that have plots that are large enough for people to actually grow a portion of what they need to eat. And in some countries, this is the major form of vegetable production, is urban gardeners that are growing their own in small plots. So that's just my 2 cents having happened into this conversation. It's well worth pursuing. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Maybe all the wonderful supporters have been up here who want to besides me. I assume that Councilmember Marsh pointed out that Environmental Action came up with strong support last night for it. And I wanted to add one thing that may not be in this resolution, but it's something that the best-known local garden on a private project, and you've already heard from them, I think, from the group that's operating that so successfully, and it's that the soil is the most important thing. Excuse me for not taking off my hat, maybe. If it could be, it may not require amendment to this resolution, ordinance, to whatever it takes to get this study started. But education for everybody about, and this starts with developers, staff members, and the public in general, about where the best soil is. If you've got a flatland lot around Fayetteville, it was not red dirted before your house was built. And some of the hillsides, even some hilltops, will grow good vegetables. But it's former prairie land that needs to be protected. It's the soil that we depend on. Of course, we've got to have rainfall and sunshine at the right time and all those factors to have an easy garden. But my neighbor down in the Town Branch neighborhood, let's see, today he bought a bunch of mulch and something else was in it. But anyway, he hasn't had to amend his soil to this year. He's lived on that lot adjacent to the Town Branch for 45 years and gardened like crazy all those years. And he's just now finally, this past year, decided he needed to add something. That's how good that soil is. And he's got constant flower beds, constant things. He gave me some kale today, and I took him, after I took him a couple of little potted berry trees, the elderberry you're familiar with, elderberry wine. Anyway, it grows wild here, and if you can find some, and I happen to have it in my yard, lots of little ones coming up to go with the 7 or 8 feet tall in some cases. They grow in my backyard. They just come there wild. They were natural. And that's because that land, most of it was never plowed. It was pasture, hay fields, and so forth. And if we can share with more people, and maybe as part of this study, that the significance of that soil and how it can be identified. And I think Alderman Marsh is looking at her place, and some others already have some things growing. And you've got deep, rich soil. It's the most precious thing the land can do is help us provide local food. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Anybody else? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Any final comments?
Mr. Mayor, could I clarify a couple things?
Sure.
Just to make sure that people understand. Obviously, homeowners can grow gardens now. It's not too late to plant. You can plant your gardens. I plant and garden, and so we certainly can do that before we change any ordinances, and that's fine. The other thing is, a couple of years ago, I drafted up agreements between the Fayetteville School District and our Parks Department so that the Jefferson School area could in fact have community gardens with water supply.
We got about 4 of those now, I think.
And I'm not sure exactly what the status of all that is, but they could talk to the Parks Department if you wanted to have your own plot there. Very reasonable cost, and a water supply, which of course in the last 2 years of drought, you need that water supply. So we do have some of that. I'm not saying, you know, obviously there can be more, but we have made steps in that direction already.
Okay. I want to thank just a few folks before we leave here, before we vote, just for the record. I want to thank the Fayetteville Forward Green Economy Group. I want to thank Sarah Marson, Environmental Action Committee, and her work on that. I know your stands on local food production. Thank you for your work. The Fayetteville Forward Local Foods Group has been very involved in this. Apple Seeds, SNAP Education, the Fayetteville Community Garden Coalition, Fayetteville Public Schools, Feed Fayetteville, University of Arkansas Community Design Center. I know Don Bennett down at Tricycle. It's just absolutely, I always go there to escape a lot of some of the other things I might be going through at the time, but it's always good to be able to do community garden work and go down there and plant seeds and watch things grow. And that's a very important thing to me. I want to thank Peter and Erin Garden and staff for their work on this. Excellent job. This resolution of intent will allow us to move forward. I have a sign in my office, and the staff will tell you this, that our guiding principles is an open door, open mind, and an open heart in this city. And when I see this come together like this, I know that those principles are being enhanced and moved forward in this city. So if I left anybody out, I apologize for that. If you can think of anybody else we need to thank right now, I can't think of anything else.
Our mayor,
Well,
thank you. It comes from the top, I think. Thank you, Mayor.
I move we pass the resolution.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. All right. Number 6, amend 114.02 Farmers Market. An ordinance to amend 114.02 Farmers Market to transfer the current free use of south parking spaces on Mountain Street to the control of the Rural Mountain Producers Exchange Board, to close Mountain Street to traffic, to permit sound amplification during farmers market, and to make other changes. Kit?
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends Section 114.02 Farmers Market, A, establishment, location, and parking restrictions of the Fayetteville Code by amending the third sentence to include "and on the south side of Mountain Street," and amending the last sentence to allow amplified music by special event permits, so that Section 114.02A shall now read, quote, A, establishment, location, and parking restrictions. A farmer's market is hereby established in the city. This marketplace shall be located on the interior parking spaces, those parking spaces adjoining the old post office of the downtown square. In addition, on Saturdays only, parking spaces on the east side of East Avenue and on the south side of Mountain Street on the downtown square shall be available for vendors by closing the streets to through traffic. Vendors shall be permitted to park their vehicles at right angles to street curbs, provided that no vehicle shall be permitted to extend to the street in such a manner as to obstruct the free flow of traffic, and no vehicle shall be parked within 15 feet of any fire plug. All public sidewalks around the square shall remain freely available to the public, with the inside 2/3 width of the sidewalks free from any tables, booths, or displays. Farmers market vendors may occupy no more than 1/3 of the width of the sidewalk directly in front of their assigned parking space. As long as pedestrian traffic is not obstructed or hindered, the corners of the square's sidewalks and any unoccupied space around the outside third of the sidewalk can be used during the authorized hours and days of the farmers market for government communication, free speech, and acoustic music purposes. No sound amplification may be used unless approved by the Rural Mountain Producers Exchange Board and the city through a special event permit process. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends Section 114.02C, articles permitted to be sold, by adding, quote, "and have all appropriate permits," unquote, to the last sentence. Section 3, that the City Council, City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends Section 114.02, subsection E fee by repealing it and relettering the subsequent sections F and G appropriately.
Thank you. Well, this ordinance is pretty simple. If we pass it, it would do three things. It would allow the farmers market to close and control the south side of Mountain Street, to use sound amplification under a special permit for the city, primarily for their, big keystone events that bookend the season, and also to allow them to set their own fees for vendors. If it's okay with you, Mayor, and with the rest of the council, I'd like to ask the manager of the Farmers Market Authority, Boatwright, to explain why they're seeking these changes.
All right,
Hi.
well, good evening.
Hi, everybody. I also have 2 board members here if there's any questions you would like to direct with them.
We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 board members here as well if there's any questions you'd like to direct to them. The first change is just to allow us to sell on the south side of Mountain Street. The street was closed for public safety by former Mayor Cootie, and with the popularity of the market, we just need a little pedestrian overflow room, and that allows us to expand and stretch out a little bit more. The second and then the sound permit, again, just by special event permit, that music or other types of amplification that would partner well with the farmers market. Section 2, all appropriate permits, just kind of cleaning up some language there. Section 3, repealing Article E. That was originally written in 1973 when this ordinance was first written, and those are issues that come up through the membership vote, what we charge for a membership fee, which we do still charge $5 for a membership fee, and the commission rate that's charged. The ordinance read at 10%. We currently charge 5% and 7.5% respectively on weekdays and weekends. We'd like the ability to be able to change that within the membership. If our, the vendors of the farmers market feel the need to charge more or charge less, depending on infrastructure or other things we might want to look into, then leave that up to the membership instead of bringing it back to the council every time. And that's what we've got.
Sure.
Could you explain a little bit how you'll make sure that the advocacy groups and other nonprofits on the south side would still have space to do their work?
We have kind of moved them over into Town Center Plaza, and it's actually a better thoroughfare for them. They actually like the space better, and the public seems to like them better there.
What about the candidates, Laura, that usually are on that side of the street? Where are they going to go?
During last election season, they were in Town Center Plaza as well. We also worked with different places on the sidewalks and the wider areas that weren't pedestrian, a lot of pedestrian flow through those areas. So we just kind of moved and worked with everyone individually to what best suited their needs and what allowed traffic to flow and business to continue.
What about the animal services adoption of the dogs? Would they still be allowed to?
Yes, that won't
set up?
change.
Okay. All right.
Lori, I have a question for you, because last year when I was campaigning myself down on the square, you said that one of the issues that you thought needed to be looked at was the limited amount of space that people had to exercise free speech. Nonprofits, people running for office, just, different types of things like that. And so this doesn't really address the amount of space they have.
No. And that's something that we could still look at. For right now, this just kind of cleans up some ordinance language and allows the farmers market to primarily operate as a farmers market, which draws everyone there to politicize or whatever else it's like to do.
Mayor, I should note that the town plaza is controlled by the A&P Commission, not by the city, not by the farmers market, but by the A&P Commission. And that was one concern I had, is that the farmers market is great. It's my favorite thing in Fayetteville, but one of the things I like about it is that you can go there not just to buy food, but also to meet people. And so I am concerned about making sure we have some space for the Humane Society, for our own animal shelter, and for candidates and issue organizers that really do need a space that's not out of the way, but a space that's right there, which they've had in the past at the south side of Mountain Street.
May I address that? Last year, we set up on the south side of Mountain Street as a trial run and worked with each candidate and each nonprofit individually, again, to suit their needs as well as, allow traffic flow, and got better response. The nonprofits actually enjoyed the space. They weren't in the mad rush of people trying to get from booth to booth. They were actually able to engage with people. I know many of the politicians felt the same way, and just kind of play that on a case-by-case basis and what works best for everyone. And
Mark.
I have to reiterate that I also am concerned about the access for advocacy groups, because I have an interesting story. I enjoy the company of Spring International staff, often staying at my home, and I had an older lady on their staff that came from Upper Manhattan. That's where she was raised and that's where she lived. She had traveled the world. She happened to come down to Fayetteville. Like she said, she never reckoned she would be in Arkansas ever in her life. Her concern was spiders and snakes, and she had a list of things that I had to assure her were not in our home. But she went down to the farmer's market the first Saturday when she was here, and she came back with all this information, and she was so delighted. She couldn't believe that she had landed in this place. And it was information from political candidates. It was advocacy information that really let her know the character and the broad diversity that we respected and that we embraced here in our city. It made me proud to be part of our city when someone comes in with preconceived notions that they have access to this type of advocacy information, and that she felt instantly connected with the city because of the information that she received from the candidates that were freely allowed to work in areas around the square. So I think that recognizing that this is such an integral part of the subculture of our farmers market, that somehow we have to protect and encourage this type of interaction. Reading this, I know that the intent is not in any way to prevent that from happening, but as we move into the future, it could be interpreted as such, depending on who and what, and it becomes suddenly, what are the issues that are important maybe to the people at that time, so it becomes more restrictive. So that is my concern, and I did want to mention it because that's, somehow we need to have this integrated in our policy so that we can protect the very thing that makes our farmers markets so special, on Saturdays especially, on the weekends, because I've seen how it is this educational forum that indeed promotes the character of our community. So I wanted to mention that, first of all, because you do a great job down there. It is recognized as one of the best farmers markets in the United States, and we're very proud of that. But as we move forward and actually talk about the way that this is managed through our city code, I want to be sure that we protect what we have that makes it so special.
thank you. And we're very proud of the fact that there are so many different types of people that attend the farmers market for so many different reasons, and we are constantly working to keep that balance in check. But that's not something that we want to push completely out of the market or stick in a corner somewhere. Just create that environment at all times. We're very proud that that's part of who we are. And in the last year and this year again, we've been working to become more of a community partner with some of those nonprofits and different city entities. This year, Solid Waste is looking at doing an education program at farmers market, things like that. So we want the market to be seen as a community partner as much as a community event.
Go ahead.
It's not just city functions, it's also the diversity of organizations such as the Peace Center and the accessibility of community organizations that are advocacy groups that express the advocacy of a broad nature. And so I think that somehow we have to guarantee that there is the respect and the accessibility of a very broad nature in the area. So certainly solid waste is important, but so are advocacy groups.
And we're partnering with some of those groups. With Feed Fayetteville last year, we really battled to go back to the other one, food insecurity, by donating over 20,000 pounds of produce. Feed Fayetteville was there and active every market. Different groups, Boys and Girls Club, things like that. We're doing education programs with them, as well as them being able to come to the market and let the community know. And those are just a couple of examples. So I understand where you're at
But
from a
social
policy.
advocacy, social advocacy
Yes.
is what I'm talking about as much as anything. And so that's my concern, and that's how I embrace certainly everything that happens down there, but I also embrace open exchange of ideas so that we have social issue advocacy regardless. And the person, it's interesting that I mentioned, I think if we ever had an ambassador for Fayetteville, she came back, she said, I met this guy, he sat down and talked to me for an hour, and it was Aubrey Shepherd. So is there any better advocate for what I'm talking about as far as social advocacy, as far as the diversity that is offered? And that's what I want to protect as we move forward. And I know that with the individuals that are there now, you have an earnest desire to protect that, but if we start restrictive legislation or restrictive code and we keep going, there's the opportunity for that to be more restricted as we move forward.
Yes, go ahead, Matthew.
I think we all have the same intent here. I can appreciate the trust but verify approach to this proposal, and I'm certainly willing to give this a little bit more time so that everyone can become comfortable with it. But I want to point out something I think is really important, that's fundamental to this conversation, which is that, number one, the farmers market is what enables so many businesses on the square and Center Street and Block Street to even exist. Number two, they're at a point where they've become so successful they need more space. This is a need, this isn't a want. So I can appreciate the trust but verify attitude, and like I said, I'm willing to take a little time for everyone to become more comfortable with this, but I want to emphasize that this is something that needs to be done. And we have more space we can look at if we want to tackle the problem, or I wouldn't even call it a problem yet, the anticipated challenge of where these groups are going to locate. Center Street and Block Avenue are still open right now. And the precedent that was laid by Mayor Cootie when he closed Mountain Street was that the city is going to close some space for these groups to be able to operate for public safety reasons. So the precedent has been set, and we could do something like that again. But I really want to make sure that the core of this discussion is recognized, that the farmers market, being what it is and what it provides for the city, they've been so successful that they need more space. And that's what this is meant to do.
Matthew, I know you walked this on because there was some time issues with it, but would it hurt to table it till we meet again?
Well, if we just leave it here,
If we
then in
leave
2
it,
weeks we'd be looking at it.
And then let our other aldermen be a part of it. Is it a time sensitive? You walked it on for a reason, I assume. You needed us to act.
Well, certainly my preference is to pass it tonight, but being sensitive to the concerns, I'm certainly willing to wait. Perhaps Mrs. Boatwright has a...
If we held it, what would we gain? Input from council members who have some ideas, or more public input, or more from you? What would why, I'm just trying to, I think maybe we should, but I'm not sure why I think that.
I'm not sure
Help
either,
me.
so
What
I mean,
would
I'm
we
happy
know
to
more
answer
in
your
2 weeks?
questions or, look at it.
From an
different
administrative
directions.
perspective, I've got to enforce whatever's passed by the council. So when we close that street off, and if those groups go away, then as a mayor, they're gonna be calling me, wanting to know why they can no longer be on Mountain Street. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have a tremendous issue with all this, but I want to be sure that we've covered all the bases here before we pass something, and then I get 2 or 3 calls in the next 2 or 3 days. Well, what about me? What about me? Where am I going to go? Where are you going to put me? And then I got to answer that as a mayor.
My second part of that question, Mayor, was could Kid tell us a little more about what A&P controls on the plaza and what that
Well, that's their
plays
property.
into this? How does that,
Well, we have,
I'd like to know more
you know,
about
the
that.
city long ago leased the town center, including the town center plaza, to the A&P Commission, so over a long-term lease, so they control that. I think there might be some way that we could work on this over the next couple of weeks and maybe come up with something that to try to address some of the concerns I've heard tonight. I'd be certainly willing to try to work with some of the aldermen about that, if that's what you all would want to do.
I just, yes, Al.
Well, I would just like to echo the concerns that Mark had. I would like to give it 2 more weeks of thought myself, just because I think that the issue of free speech in Fayetteville, being such an active community, is really important to me, and I don't want to make a decision right now, having not considered all the possible thought processes that go into it. And I realize that, farmers market's opening up here in April, first week of April, but I think it's more important to consider it long-term.
This isn't gonna stop it from opening.
Right,
either.
right. I mean, but,
What is isn't the first Saturday of April, right?
April 6th.
7th.
Yes.
It's April what?
The 6th.
6th, I thought it
So
was
see, the next council meeting's April the 2nd,
Okay.
right? They got that right, Sandra?
Sounds right.
Well, so we have 2 weeks, and we can look at it on April the 2nd, and that will give us time to, look at whatever issues we think might arise.
Well, and I would be happy if that is something that you decide to do and table it until then, to meet with all of you.
Well, we wouldn't be tabling it, we just leave it on like
Okay.
the first reading and go to the second reading automatically in 2 weeks.
And I'm happy to meet with all of you individually or collectively and walk around the square and show you kind of how things flow. It's very different when you show up on a Saturday during market with 5,000 customers to actually see where those spaces are. So I'm happy to meet with any and all of you. to
Great
discuss that.
idea.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. We can do it too. Mark.
As we move forward with the discussion, I do think also it's the placement of social advocacy and political groups. No one wants to be seen as pushed onto the edge, because currently, right now, where they are located is the center of action. That's also probably the best place for a vendor. But that's another thing. I don't want anyone to feel like, suddenly we're being pushed to the far reaches of the action. So I think that also somehow has to be addressed, either by policy or by the nature of the ordinance.
Mayor, can I ask, who is the chairman now of the ordinance review committee?
We don't have one
They
yet.
don't have one, they've never
We haven't met.
Maybe the ordinance review committee needs to meet. This is an ordinance, and this is something that I think needs to be looked at fairly carefully in a more casual setting than at an actual city council meeting, and you could certainly attend an ordinance review committee. So that might be something that we should look at next week, so that we can, whoever's on that committee can give some input, and maybe we can make some progress.
What do you want to do? I'm sorry, Della's been wanting to talk for.
Mayor, I agree that we need to hold it for a couple of weeks and look at it and make sure that, because I agree completely with Mark. I think that what I would like to see is a totally integrated picture up there with political candidates and advocacy groups and among the vendors. and no one over in a separate area. So that's my goal, and having been up there a lot last summer, I think we need to do a little work on it, so I would certainly like for us to have some time to work, and I'd be happy to visit with Ms. Boatwright and see what we can do.
Well, I'm certainly fine with holding it. I would prefer to not send it to ordinance review committee right away unless we run into some substantial roadblocks to reaching an agreement. Manager's already agreed to meet with several of the aldermen, and I predict we'll be able to address these concerns without making serious changes to the ordinance as proposed. And I think we can figure that out between now and the next meeting.
Okay. Just one more question. Is there any expectation that the amplification issue will be a problem with other vendors? Is that a big
Well,
deal?
that would take it, that would put me making the final call on those.
Okay. The intention is not to allow individual vendors or performers to amplify their sound. It's for when the farmers market hosts a big event,
Yes.
which they do 2 or 3 times per year, to be able to book performers.
So my question is, we don't expect that to be problematic with this.
Well, we already allow it to happen for
Yeah,
other
okay.
events.
We do.
What?
We do. It was just, last summer, some folks pointed out that there was some amplified music on some of the corners around the farmer's market. I do deal with a few of these items, and they said, well, you've got one here, what if somebody puts one down there, and somebody puts one over here, and they keep turning theirs up louder than the other one? Then we can't enjoy the farmer's market. I'm just saying, I just have a few of those calls. So I want to be sure that we don't create an issue with the amplification, which I don't think we will. We can.
That bothers me more than almost the other.
We had drummers one time, and up there, and I really got a few calls on Monday morning about the drummers on the square. Yes.
I have a question for Matthew regarding the ordinance review committee, because I would like to sit down with the manager from the market and some members of the council, including yourself, in a public meeting, just to kind of hammer through some of these issues, and I don't know that I can do that by just meeting with the
Well, we'll have to
manager of
invite
the
Joel
market.
if we do that.
Yeah, so I just wonder if ordinance review is something that you would reconsider.
I would. I'm not going to have time to have an ordinance review meeting in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I have too many exams next
Gotcha.
week. So that's certainly something we can do. We'll be talking about a delay of longer than 2 weeks if we commit to that now. I'm not opposed to that ideologically. I would just recommend seeing what can be produced from meeting with Ms. Boatwright in the interim. And if we can't work something out and we do need to hammer through some of those issues because they're more complicated, then by all means, let's have an ordinance review committee.
Gotcha.
I don't see anything that can't work probably out in a couple of weeks personally, but I just need. Okay. I guess I'm still on public comment.
I think you're right.
Okay. Come on, Aubrey.
Okay, get the hat off. Say my name. Do the drill right. Aubrey Shepherd. 2 things we didn't get around to tonight that'll take some time when you do meet again is what are the rate increases and how will that affect different people,
Aubrey,
vendors?
I'm having just a little bit of trouble hearing you. I don't
Okay.
know.
Let me not shake this.
Pull your microphone.
Short people have to do that. Okay.
Try that.
You guys didn't get around to asking about the rates tonight, and you might want to do that still tonight. The rate increases or changes and how that would affect various vendors depending on their situation and what they make now and what they have to pay.
Oh, I see what
They
you're
might
saying.
be reducing it for all I know.
No, nobody brought up
The other
rates.
thing is, in addition to sometimes the music's too loud on the corners, and if there's a big show, that puts the buskers in
Who?
the back. The buskers? Yeah, I just learned the word this year myself, I think.
Would you
people-
educate me on that?
People like my daughter and some of the others in town who've been to big cities where
Oh, I see.
they use the word, and it's British, I think, originally maybe. It just means people who play in public, put out their guitar box, and people put a few dollars in, and some of them
Oh, yeah.
collect a good bit occasionally, but it wouldn't be making a full living for anybody busking in Fayetteville, I think, but might be as good as Social Security if you're a good player. But anyhow, the buskers, the street musicians on the corners, they need a little regulation in that they don't turn their speakers up too loud. But they always draw a crowd, and they're some of the best music. And when I walk around, in the last 7 years, I've posted more than 7,000 photos from the square on Saturdays on Flickr. And while I'm doing that, I usually record a little video of each of those out there. So that's part of the drawdown. Some people get their shopping done in one trip around, but they keep going around to listen to the music and visit with people. So this is much more than just, but the garden is the center, and it's very important. But you could still draw a crowd down there if you had the music and everybody had just a social reason to be there and visit the nearby businesses. It's not the only thing, but we appreciate having it, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address us on this?
Mayor, again, my name's Mark Kane, and I'm with the Farmers Market, and I've been on the Farmers Market since 1984, and I've been on the board for 10 or 15 years. I've actually lost track how long I've been on the board. And so I've seen the market grow tremendously from the time I started there in 1984. And I've been on the board long enough to watch these issues of expansion and how do we do it and how does that affect the vendors, what spaces do we have available. And I've also been there long enough to have known when the politicians were all on the corners and then went to Mountain Street, and Tom Brown was next to me for years and years, right next to our stand. We were at Dripping Springs Garden on the southwest corner.
Yes.
So we've, been back and forth to the mayor's office about issues of free speech, this type of thing. So I just, and I respect the comments about having social intercourse at the market. I think it's one of the most important things that happens at the farmer's market. But I just want to ground the conversation down a little bit from the perspective of a farmer who participates in the market, who helps create the environment that exists there for people to interact with each other, is that we have a system, a point system, based on attendance and on sales, that where we are able to pick spots around the market square for that year. And so we're in the same spot every week, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday that we're there. For instance, in our case, we've been in the same spot for over 10 years. And if I'm ever not in that spot, customers will drive around and later on find me and say, where were you? And we were just 4 spots over. So that permanence of location for vendors, for the farmer to have a place at 6 o'clock in the morning they're going to pull into and start setting up their spot. That's something that has worked for a very long time at the farmer's market. The proposed ordinance change was simply to put into law what has been happening for the last few years, which is that the Mountain Street's been closed off, East Street has been closed off. There have been vendors there. It's actually been quite successful, and the farmers market revenues actually went up. The sales went up about 15% last year, even in a downfall economy. So there are more and more people coming to market, and on the board we've had to continually struggle with the popularity of the market, both for vendors and the public. So how do we make the market a streamlined situation where it doesn't become so chaotic that the customers are disgruntled because they can't walk around the square without bumping into everybody, and we're constantly getting applications to attend the market from growers who want to sell there. And that's why we created the botanical garden market and the satellite markets that we've been experimenting with over the last 10 years to try to accommodate the overflow from the square. And you have to also understand, what is it like to be trying to manage this controlled chaos of the growers and the public that's spontaneous every market day, and the number of nonprofits that call in and want to have a space. So how do you manage that? You have to come up with some way that ensures that the people who are coming to market to sell, that have committed to being there every week to sell the product, are stable, and then you have so much space to deal with that you can actually have people. You don't want people standing right in the main corridors of people coming back and forth to the market. So the market managers, of which we have 3.5 now, have to deal with quite a lot of public traffic and placing vendors in places where they're going to be, the whole thing has to flow smoothly. So it's problematic to try to accommodate every nonprofit that wants to come and set up every week. So we created a rule, an in-house rule some years ago, it's been a couple years ago, that each nonprofit would have a day per year that they could come and set up and sell. You know, if the Sierra Club is selling something, they can sell that day. But there are many, many, many requests like that. And this was just a way to try. Now, this had nothing to do with politicians or any other type of social advocacy. This was just particular organizations calling the farmers market and wanting a space. So I think that the farmers market, especially if the board hears the upshot of the conversation tonight, that it's very important to the city council that there be space for this type of public discourse, that can all be worked in as part of an important piece of the farmers market. As far as having people exercising their right to free speech intermingling with the vendors in the vendor places, that's extremely problematic as far as trying to organize how sellers sell down there. Now, the farmers market has no jurisdiction over the inner part of the square. There are people standing around there handing out pamphlets, walking around, people coming up. There are politicians that want to. But if you want to set up a card table or a table or something, you need to have a place. So I'm just saying this is not an easy job for our managers to always try to figure out how do you place everybody that's called you that week. So I hope that you will meet with our managers and try to figure out how do you do that and maintain the stability of the market. It's the vendors themselves who really need to go and set up in their location every week. And the only reason that we have wanted to cement the changes on Mountain Street and East Street is because the public response and the vendor response to having more spaces and having the market expand has been tremendous. It's become a much bigger deal down there. So, thank you.
Who else would like to speak on this? Okay. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. It's the wishes of the council to leave this where it is, and in 2 weeks we'll look at it again, okay? Everybody good? All right.
And how would we get in touch with Ms. Boatright if we want to, Sandra have an address or?
Lori, would you like to give us your contact number? I'm sure she's going to be in contact the next few days.
I will. Do you want me to, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what.
Just want to know how to get in contact with you to schedule to walk around the square with you or something.
Do you want my phone number, email
I'll
right
talk
now?
to you afterwards, okay?
Okay,
Maybe
yeah.
everybody else but me knows. Am I the only one who does
No,
that? I think we left this a little vague, and I thought we might.
That's right.
It was a great offer, I thought, and I'd like to take you up
I'm
on
happy
that.
to. So, and I think
Okay.
it'll
And I don't know if we were talking about, help us
I
here,
might
Chief.
just add that, the council often arranges tours, and so if you would like to do a
Switch
collective tour, we can coordinate with Lori so she doesn't have to have 8
That would be great.
visits. We can set a time for each of the group to work together and then have the clerk's office send that out for the public notification.
I would appreciate that very much.
I would
That'd be
too.
great, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody good?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. All right, so we'll leave it where it is. That, is there any announcements tonight?
Yes, we have a couple of announcements. Our first spring ward cleanup is this weekend, the 23rd. It starts with our Ward 4 areas. Owl Creek School, which is at 375 North Whipple Road, and Holcomb Elementary, which is on Salem Road. are the two locations. Remember that any citizen from any part of the city can participate in them. They're just moved around to be convenient to various sections of the city. These are on the west side of I-540 locations. The second item is that, remind the council that you do already have one tour scheduled for Monday, the 25th, this coming Monday. It is the Fayetteville Public Library Tour. And so maybe we can coordinate something, depending on work schedules, either around or that time period, or we'll get another date for you on the one we just talked about. And then lastly, the first town hall meeting for this year is scheduled for April the 1st. It'll be at the Boys and Girls Club at 7 p.m. And that's prior to our next meeting. So those are the three announcements tonight.
Anybody else?
We have Ward 4 meeting Monday night, 6 o'clock, right here at City Hall, room 111, right? Yeah.
What's the date on that?
25th.
25th.
Monday night, the 25th, last Monday night of the month, 6 o'clock, 6 to 7.
Okay.
And it's, during that, Bruce Shackelford will be there. There was some questions regarding Woolsey Wet Prairie, and he'll be giving information about the Woolsey Wet Prairie. It'll be a good time for people that don't know a lot about it or want to become more familiar with it to learn more, and also.
And Patty Williams will be there to talk about Fayetteville Compassion to the group. So we've got two great speakers Monday night. Ward 4 and Friends.
That's right.
Friends are welcome.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you all. We're adjourned.